All right, let's just jump right in. You hear it all the time, right? This constant fear that robots and automation are coming for our jobs. But here's the thing. In China, the one country that's installing more robots than literally anywhere else on Earth, the vibe is completely different. So today, we're going to get into the really deep reasons why China isn't just okay with automation. They're embracing it at a pace that is just, well, staggering.
So take a look at this picture. You've got a Russian Orthodox cathedral. Stalin Park is just down the road. The winters are brutally, brutally cold. You would totally be forgiven for thinking, okay, we're somewhere in Siberia. But you'd be wrong.
Turns out, this is Heilongjiang, a province in northwest China. And not that long ago, this place was the industrial heart of the entire country. It was pumping out the coal, the oil, the gas, everything that fueled China's big economic boom. It was the nation's pride. But then, about 10 years ago, China just moved on.
The new message from the top was crystal clear. Robots are the future. You either adapt or you get left behind. And this wasn't just talk, not at all. The numbers are just mind-boggling. In 2022 alone, China installed almost 6 times more industrial robots than any other country. The whole transition was incredibly fast and, honestly, pretty unforgiving. But see this big national success story? It came at a massive human cost. The people in these old industrial areas, we're talking about a population of 100 million people, were basically just forgotten.
Now, you might be thinking, well, like in America's Rust Belt, can't you just pack up and move for a better job? Nope. In China, there's a system called hukou, and it ties all your public services, things like healthcare and your kids' education, to the place you were born. So if you were born in Heilongjiang, you are, for all practical purposes, a permanent second-class citizen anywhere else in your own country. And this right here brings us to the central puzzle of this whole thing. Because despite being replaced by robots, despite being trapped by the system, the people in China are unbelievably optimistic. I mean, look at this chart. Out of 54 countries surveyed, China is 6 times as optimistic about the future as the United States. It's wild.
This is the question, isn't it? After being pretty much dismissed as losers in this shiny new economy, why on earth do these same workers have such positive feelings about the very technology that took their jobs? It doesn't seem to add up. Let's break it down.
So the first piece of this puzzle is this really deeply ingrained national mindset. It's almost like a state religion where technology is seen as the ultimate savior.
For more than a century, China has had this one single-minded goal: to catch up and surpass the West. You have leaders like Xi Jinping constantly repeating phrases just like this one, framing all of history as a zero-sum game, a race that China believes, for a long time, it was losing because of a technology gap.
And to win this race, China has a strategy it calls overtaking on a bend. The metaphor is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. The idea is that while other cautious countries, the West, might slow down when they face the risks of a big curve, China believes it has to slam on the accelerator and speed right past them to get ahead. This obsession with tech really kicked into high gear right after Mao died. I mean, his great leap forward was a complete, undeniable catastrophe. The party had a huge problem. It couldn't just disown its founder, so it pivoted. It decided its new legitimacy would come from scientific know-how and delivering real material progress. Smartphones, high-speed rail, and yep, robots. Okay, so that's the big grand vision. But how do you actually put that into practice? Well, you do it through a massive top-down bureaucracy, which, as you can imagine, creates its own set of very unique problems. Here's how it basically works on the ground. Step 1, Xi Jinping sets a big goal. Step 2, the central government tells local officials, make it happen. Step 3, those officials' careers and promotions now depend on hitting measurable targets, like the number of robots installed. So what's the result? A frantic, sometimes mindless rush to install as many robots as possible, whether they're actually useful or not. And hey, let's be fair, when the goals are easy to measure, this system can be shockingly effective. Take China's digital economy. It just exploded, going from only 14% of GDP back in 2005 to nearly 39% by 2020. That is a pretty remarkable achievement. But, and this is a huge but, this exact same system makes China incredibly vulnerable to what you could call digital snake oil. Yeah, for every real success story like TikTok,
There are just countless money-losing metaverse startups, billions wasted on fuzzy smart city projects, or even outright scams like a so-called futuristic bus that turned out to be just a big pyramid scheme. Look, no country is immune to tech hype, of course, but the difference here is pretty stark. You could say it like this. If Silicon Valley invents the world's most cutting-edge snake oil, China's top-down system of incentives makes it the world's biggest buyer, digging the deepest money pits for these speculative tech fads.
So we've seen the huge cost for the people left behind, and we've seen the incredible waste baked into the system. But what about the people who are supposedly winning in this new tech economy? Well, as it turns out, their reality isn't all that great either.
A lot of those former factory workers ended up in these really precarious gig economy jobs like food delivery. But harsh penalties for being late mean they're driving recklessly, and accidents are super common. And meanwhile, even the highly educated software engineers are often trapped in that infamous 99-6 work culture. That's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. All of which brings us right back to our central question. Why is there no outrage? The final, crucial piece of the puzzle isn't really economic or political, it's psychological. When researchers asked Chinese tech workers about these grueling schedules, they didn't deny how hard it was. Instead, they'd say things like this engineer explaining that if they worked normal hours, the country wouldn't have accomplished so much. They are acutely aware of how difficult their conditions are. This is a concept known as a psychological wage. Basically, workers place their own personal hardships inside that bigger story of national progress. They don't see their long hours and low pay as just exploitation. They see it as a necessary sacrifice for the collective good, for that big goal of finally catching up to the West. It's a powerful sense of pride that buys the government an incredible amount of loyalty.
So that's the powerful force holding this whole thing together. You've got a national tech religion, a relentless top-down system pushing it forward, and a workforce that's being paid in part with pride. It's a psychological wage that can absolutely buy loyalty. But the real question, the one that hangs over everything is, for how long?